Farm4Profit podcast. Take a listen, have a blast. Farm4Profit podcast. Learn about farming while having a laugh. Farm4Profit podcast.
On today's Farm for Fun show from the Commodity Classic in Orlando at the John Deere booth, we get to meet face-to-face with one of Ag's most beloved people. She's a familiar face, a household name. She's a host of the U.S. Farm Report, a native Missourian by birth, a Texan by marriage. Please welcome Mrs. Tyne Morgan.
I loved it. Beloved. My husband does not describe me as such, so I appreciate you.
Significant others, sometimes, they might not call each other pretty names. But
No, not always.
Yeah, that's what's fun about it, huh?
It is.
So I'm sure everyone knows you. I said, your household name, but how do you describe who you are?
I'm a mom of two.
Yeah.
Live in a small town in Missouri, about 800 people. Moved back in 2019. And, when people ask me what I do for a living, I say I'm in agriculture.
Yeah.
So I don't say I host a television show.
Yeah.
I'm in ag. And so, of course, if you're on a plane, then they say, oh, do you farm? No, I don't farm. And so then I get into it that, no, I host an agricultural television show. But I went to school to be an ag journalist. And so even though I host a television show, I am a journalist. But at the end of the day, I am a mom in rural Missouri who really, once we moved back to that area, just has a growing passion for the community. And so been trying to do more for the community. I've traveled so much that was, I said I have to figure out a way to give back. And so that's kind of what I do. But in our town, I think some people still don't know that I host a television show outside of ag. Yeah, because I don't talk about it. I am Kinsler and Kimbrell's mom, and I am perfectly okay with that.
So what's your past? Did you grow up farming? Were you in FFA, 4-H? Go back a few years.
Yep. So both sides of my family farm, but both of my parents were teachers.
Okay.
My dad an ag teacher, FFA advisor. He was in politics for like a 12-year stint, but the rest of that time he is a retired ag teacher. My mom a middle school librarian, track coach, cheer coach. So they didn't farm, but on both sides of my family, my dad's side, he was actually born and raised in Texas. My granddad actually had a vision, decades ago, and he saw that the water situation wasn't going to get any better. So he actually moved the entire family when my dad was in middle school to Missouri, and so that's how they ended up in Missouri. So we still have relatives that farm in Texas. And then my mom's side of the family, my grandpa ran a drag line for a living, but outside of that, then they're farming in Carroll County, Ray County, that area. So I got into FFA in high school to begin with to make my dad proud. I knew I would love it. I went to all of the functions with him, but I did it to make my dad proud, and I didn't know how much I would love it. And so then I started doing public speaking, got offered a job at a local radio station called KMZU. When I got offered the job, my sister said, oh, well, you'll probably just be pouring coffee, which that's what interns do, right? That's what you think at 16 and 17 years old.
Yeah.
But within 3 days, they taught me how to read the markets. And that's at the time when you were reading the DTN screen where, I had to decipher this code, and M is June and N is July, and Z is, so I spent 3 days studying this. I really didn't even understand truly what I was reading, but I just spent studying. And then after 3 days, they put me on the air. I started going out and broadcasting live. We had this big red roving radio. They took this trailer and made it into a red roving radio. I'll never forget, the engineer had to take me out and teach me how to drive a trailer. I'm 16 years old. I do not know why. I still think, golly, this general manager must have been crazy to think this was okay. Wow. But I went out and I did that all through high school. I worked there in the summer. The first year I didn't even do it for pay. It was for a scholarship. So I worked at Sonic at night to pay for my gas. But loved it. Ended up deciding that's what I wanted to do, and so majored in agricultural journalism at the University of Missouri. I loved radio. I worked for Brownfield. I worked with the most amazing people who really helped grow even more of a passion for farm broadcasting and being an ag journalist. But I really wanted to do the TV side, and so I ended up going the broadcast. So at the University of Missouri, then you had to declare a sequence. So you could go print, you could go broadcast, or then you could go more of the marketing side of it.
Okay.
And I did not want to write for the newspaper, I can tell you that. So I went the broadcast side. And, there weren't a lot of people that did that in the ag track because TV, it's a lot. It's basically, they take all the students, and those are the reporters. So you're working basically a job at the station. It was great. Loved it. But my senior year, I did a 2-part series on confined animal feeding operations and why they were actually a good thing for the local community.
Yeah.
And the reason I went that route is at the time there was a proposed CAFO outside of Columbia, Missouri. And every single article, every single news story, everything was negative. And so in my mind, I thought, well, I'm just going to do the positive side. Nobody's told that. So I did, and the response the first night when part 1 aired was from all these extremists writing and saying she only told one side of the story. And so I got a call from the news director, and you look back at some of those points in your life that really were a pivotal point and really taught you something, and that was one of them. So the next night then, I did the other side of it, and I had shared with the farmer that I had interviewed, who's now the director of agriculture for Missouri, Chris Chen. I shared with her the negative feedback that I had, and so she was like, oh, we're going to do the opposite. So the next night, they flooded the station with positive comments, and the news director brought me in the next day, and he said, there's been a lot of response from your stories, but the responses ended up being too positive. And so it was like the negative, they were okay with that, but the fact there were so many positive. And so, long story short, I then got a taste for, okay, maybe local TV isn't for me. I'm too passionate about ag, and so maybe local TV isn't for me. Well, about a week later, my roommates called, and they said, Tyne, I just want to warn you, when you get home, we have the Columbia Missourian here, and there's a hit piece about you from the Sierra Club.
Wow.
And so at 21 years old, not only was it about me, but it was about Chris Chen, and it didn't attack the story. It went after my character. And so that's when I kind of realized, these extremists, it's a whole different ballgame.
Yeah.
And so, a college student, and there was weird things like I got forwarded an email from, there was a secretary of like the Catholic Association in Missouri who was actually an activist who was sending out letters about what they should say about me and all of this stuff. And, it's just this, I then began to realize they have a steady drum. And it is a drum where they have such a loud voice because the second a story comes out that was positive agriculture, they were on it. And and they just continued to send emails. And so, long story short, I ended up not going into broadcast right out of college. I ended up going to work for Monsanto, and I loved it. But I also knew with that decision I probably wouldn't get back into broadcast because once you make that jump to PR, they say then you're tainted and you won't be able to get back into the world of journalism. Well, I've learned that I think if it's your calling to do something, it's actually not that hard. Like it's like a bicycle. You know, once I got back into it, it wasn't that hard. In ag journalism, there is a different side of it because it's not this vast industry; it's a smaller industry. But I knew I didn't want to go to local TV because I don't have to report on those homicides or those house fires or everybody that's angry all the time.
Yep.
In ag, it's fun. I mean, are there hard stories that you have to cover? Absolutely.
Yep.
Are there stories you don't want to cover? Absolutely. But at the end of the day, there's so much good in ag.
Yep.
And so that's I married my husband. So I was working for Monsanto, married my husband in 2011 during the drought. We had never lived in the same state, let alone the same town. Moved to the panhandle of Texas, Dumas, Texas, in the middle of the drought. Thought I was in hell, not because of the people, but the drought situation.
Yeah,
I mean, it was so awful. But then he got relocated to a seed production site in southern Michigan. South Bend is where our broadcast studios are based. And so talk about a small world. The guy that James replaced, his wife was the distribution manager for our broadcast properties. So she found out that I was moving up, called me out of the blue. I wasn't looking to change jobs and said, do you want to come be our national reporter? And while it is my dream job, it took me a while to decide because I really did love what I did. I mean, every job that I have, it's not that I want that next best thing. I just, people will say, well, what do you want to do next? I don't know because I love what I do. So I just try to be in the moment and really
check
enjoy.
That question off the list. What do you want to do next?
Because I really, my husband asked me that one day and I'm like, honestly, now I don't know. Maybe if a big network called, one time I said, maybe if a big network called, then I would be okay. But I don't think I would want to leave ag.
Back up about 20 minutes ago. Did you say you're a cheerleader?
I used to be.
You used to be a cheerleader.
Well, I grew up in
pulled that out of that whole thing.
Out of that whole thing.
Listen.
It's like my mom's a cheerleader coach. I'm like, she had to have been a cheerleader.
She wasn't mine, and that's probably why we both survived.
Oh, jeez.
My dad wasn't my FFA advisor, which is probably why we both survived, right? Because if he told me anything, I probably wouldn't listen. But I went to a small school. So, you have a pulse, you're in everything.
You're in
so
everything.
cheerleading, drum major of the band, all of that. But I had a great high school experience. Loved ag. Wasn't a state FFA officer. Wasn't a national FFA officer. Any of those. And so I think my biggest message to people, young people who have such a sight set on this is my goal. This is my path. This is what I want to do. I was crushed when I didn't get state FFA officer. I was crushed. But what I didn't know is it was going to open the door for so many other things. And so, yeah.
That's really hard. The failures a lot of times come out to be the best thing for you, and it's so hard to think about that in the time because you're so mad.
It crushes you.
Yeah.
It absolutely, and I was more disappointed because I know how bad my dad wanted it, know, and so it crushed me, it crushed him. For a second there, then you almost get bitter, like, what else could I have done? But I look back, and really my freshman year, it did open up for me to be able to do a lot of things. So I still, of course, adore FFA, love FFA. It was the foundation. If you would take it like a spoke wheel of where I am now, it all leads back to FFA.
I didn't realize there was a college major for TV broadcasting. I thought that was just something, a skill or a talent that you had or developed. I didn't realize there's actually an educational track that people can take.
Well, and Tanner, the hardest thing about that was that it is people from all over, right? So when I declared the broadcast route, I knew it wasn't going to be easy because I am lumped in with all of these people that want to be the next ESPN analyst, want to be, I went to school with Tony Romo's wife.
Really?
Now wife, yeah. I mean, it's people from because the journalism school at the University of Missouri is really, really good. And so, there's all these people coming from Chicago, Dallas. I mean, all these people. It is super competitive. But because I did ag journalism, because I had a niche, and because I knew what I wanted to cover, it actually gave me a leg up. And so I'll never forget, I was one of the first ones. So you have Broadcast 1, Broadcast 2, Broadcast 3, and I was one of the first ones then in Broadcast 1 to get clearance to go to the station. And that's a big deal. And I walked out, and I heard a girl from actually near, she was from Oregon. I heard her say, I don't know why Tyne got approved to go. She does the same story week after week, and I'm like, same story. And I thought, I cover ag. So she thought just because it was ag, even though it's a different ag story every week, because it was ag. But carving out that niche actually gave me a really good experience. I don't know if I would have been able to make it if I also wasn't in the ag school. So because I was an ag journalism major, I was in the ag school, but also took broadcast classes. I don't know. I feel like I would have got lost in the mix. So it was the best of both worlds.
Huh. Yeah, I wouldn't have thought of that.
What's the journalism industry and broadcasting industry and the institutions think of, like, we didn't go to school for this, right? We're not on TV, but we have a podcast that's done pretty good, and there's other people, Rob Sharkey and all that. Like, we have no background. What do they think of that?
And it's been so long since I went back to the ag or to the journalism school. I guess it was a few years ago that I did give a presentation. But now they no longer have those tracks. It's all about multimedia. It's all about. But at the end of the day, the journalism side of it is still what they're teaching. But for Farm Journal, we're not the editorial team. We're the content team.
Yeah.
And so when you look at, I look at my house, we for the longest time, we didn't pay for television. My husband, really bad job security, but we didn't pay for television. And so if you are blind to the fact that there are so many other, I look at where I don't watch local TV. Yeah. I do not watch local TV. I don't, I try to really, I want to preserve the innocence of my little girls. And so I don't watch local TV, but I will, watch some of these video podcasts, look online. Content today is redefined that it's I hope that people still want, there's a lot of question marks about journalists. Are they biased or are they not? But at the end of the day, when you tune into U.S. Farm Report, I hope that you do not know where I stand on any issues. Now, do I have an opinion? Oh, yeah. My husband will tell you I have a strong opinion. But, that's what John Phipps does. Yeah. So when you tune in, I may be the host of a television show, but I'm still an ag journalist. It's a fine line, and it's one that's a challenge. But I respect and I appreciate all content providers because at the end of the day, you guys are able to cover some things that maybe I can't touch.
I consider us more like the Barstool to the ESPN.
That is a great way to put it.
Barstool egg.
Because we could get away with a little bit more.
Exactly. And you can provide that color that people appreciate, right? So I hope that, our viewers, they still see a need for U.S. Farm Report. Yep. But at the same time, to maybe hear come some of those alternative views or maybe some of those stories that we're not covering on U.S. Farm Report. I see a place where it's not either or. In this day and age, everybody's hungry for content, and so I hope it's all of us together. And it's so cool what you guys do. Not having a filter, that is awesome. I'm a little jealous.
But even then, we're still way more filtered than we want to be.
Oh, absolutely.
Because you don't sit up here in this crow's nest and do this interview without a filter.
Nope.
Yeah.
I mean, agriculture is becoming less and less conservative, but by large, this industry is not super radical. I
think they're realizing
not terminology I'm using correctly. You don't just kick back, cuss, and drink until you can't anymore.
Although deer coming out with the Busch Light cans and all that,
here's
tell you what, that is the best example.
Relatable.
Yes.
Relatable
Real
is
people.
the trend of everything is real people, and real people drink beer, and real people have fun, and this is what it looks like.
Yeah.
But also, you guys, I mean, I have to have more of a filter, of course. It's kind of just middle of the road. But you guys and what you do, you have enough respect for agriculture that, if anyone tuned in, you want them to have this positive, this real view of ag, and you don't want to leave a negative taste in their mouth. And so you guys do that, you balance that well.
Yeah.
Everything we've talked about is ag journalism or ag. What's something about you that is not ag and not journalism?
Mm-hmm. Well, so this year, I travel a lot. And so I told this story this morning at our U.S. Farm Report roundtable taping. But last year, so my husband started traveling a little bit more, and it's awesome. I've always been the one that's gone, so now we go on shopping trips to like Dollar Tree, like Dad's gone. We are going, which should be $1.25 tree now, because everything, even the girls, I said, well, that's no longer $1. And they said, why? I said, inflation. And so now they went to school and they're blaming everything on inflation. And I'm like, oh my gosh, the superintendent's going to call us. Anyway.
The teacher gives me so much more homework than last year. It must be inflation.
Yeah. So, but I said I've been making more of an effort to really do more in my community. So this past year, we had some change up at the school, and including in the press box for the football team. So my dad actually announced my hometown football team for 30 years. So they came to me and they said, would your dad be willing to announce? We can't find anyone. And he couldn't because I have a little sister still. And so, she's actually in high school, 20 years different story.
Really?
Yeah. I was the youngest for 20 years. So probably explains a lot.
Explains a lot.
So he, for 30 years, did that. And it was so awesome. I great memories. Well, he couldn't because she cheers. And so he still wanted to be able to go and support her. So then the AD, who it's like 25 minutes from where I grew up, but the AD, we grew up in the same town. He said, well, Tyne, would you be willing to announce? This is 8-man football, mind you.
Ooh, 8-man. That's what I grew up with.
8-man, love it. So I said, I will, or, look for someone else. If you can't find someone else, then I will. But you have to okay it with the high school coach. You have to okay it with some of these, big supporters of Oric Bearcat football, because I'm well aware there's not a lot of female football announcers.
Oh,
and
sure.
So anyway, he...
this is live announcement. At the game.
At the game.
Like you're broadcasting it.
No, not broadcasting.
Yep.
So it's not color. It's really just, but 8-man is a different beast. You don't have a 50-yard line. Yeah. So it's some of those that took some transition. So anyway, this fall I started announcing our 8-man football team.
That's cool.
And I really wanted to bring it when I called the head coach. And I said, Coach Thacker, I just want to get your opinion. Is there anything that you want more of that you don't want? And he's like, well, I really don't like the pomp and circumstance. And I'm like, and all of the showboating and stuff that goes along sometimes with it. And I'm like, okay, you just fueled my fire. So I'm calling, can we get a jet to fly over? Can we get can we get them to come and present the flag? I'm thinking all of this stuff. Yeah. So anyway, took it up a different notch, got some, figuring out what did the boys want played for music. So it's this, I wanted to make it this whole experience. And so this year, that's what I ended up doing and started announcing our 8-man football team. So that is something outside. But then I've realized that, some of those things in the community, it's now a second full-time job. Restarted youth basketball in our town, things like that. So I want our girls, even though we're in a town of 800, those kids should have every opportunity that any other community has. And it just takes, someone to be passionate and have a little bit of fire to bring that back. And the community has been so wonderful. So that's something outside of ag. But I'm telling you, a farmer actually came in to the press box at halftime one time and he goes, I knew that was your voice. And so hilarious that those,
cool.
Those things happen.
Right. Yeah, I can only imagine. It's the 8-man game is a little bit faster paced, much higher scoring, but like you said, you still got to get used to. Oh, they're on the 40. No, they're actually on the 30. Yeah.
What is there? Is there no linemen? Or
So,
two?
no, there's 3 down linemen. And then usually you end up with a slot receiver and a tailback. And then it was always, we call it just the wingman, just someone who was always in motion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What position do you play? Water boy?
Me, kicked it. Kicked.
You kicked?
kick?
I kicked.
See,
You're a kicker?
we don't even kick anymore. Like, I got to the field and I said, our goalposts, they need a refresh. Like, we were painting this sucker. So we did. We don't even use them. It was just all, yeah. So, but to give you an example, one of our scores this year was 96-84.
Oh, boy.
Yeah.
It's high scoring.
entertaining.
It's fun.
Yeah.
It's fun.
Yeah, I was such a small guy. That's the only thing I could do and not get hit. It was kick, right? Yeah, but no, it was
That's
fun.
awesome.
Because as the teams got better, and I didn't go all the way through high school with it, but as the teams got better, we had a point where we scored 32 points in 36 seconds.
Oh, my gosh.
Oh, my gosh.
Punt return, onside kick recovery, touchdown pass. It just onside kick recovery, touchdown pass, interception. Just
Wow.
boom, all within 36
Gotta be
seconds.
a record.
It was. It might still be. But
It
yeah.
has to be.
Yeah.
We have never, that 96-84 was a big deal. I'm like, I'm going to tell the Bearcats, they better step it up.
Yeah, it was fun because I watched, obviously not playing
Yeah.
throughout, but we had 3 brothers, all a year apart. And as they got older, and the oldest was in my class,
Yeah.
and as a senior, it was just fun to watch
Oh.
the talent because there's a connection you have as siblings that you can't have with other teammates.
Yeah.
Like you just knew. So
Yeah.
one was the quarterback, and the other one was one of the receivers, and they were both fast and.
They could
Yeah.
read each other really well.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's A-man football is a blast because it is so fast-paced.
What's your spouse think? Like our spouses are back home with our kids and whatnot, and they're taking care of the home ship there while we go out and we get to have
Yeah.
fun being podcasters.
We're working, Dave.
We're working. We're working.
You are
we're
working.
right.
I will
So-
attest to that.
So-
You can still have fun while you work.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
While you're out working and you said traveling all over, how's your spouse been on that and kids and growing up? Like, what's that look like?
When we lived in Indiana, it was really hard because our girls are 15 months apart. And so, I've always traveled. It's part of the job. But, we had a 1-year-old and a 5-week-old, and here I am traveling. And it's, I'm not going to say it was easy. I mean, he didn't sign up for this single dad life, and that's kind of what it was. And so that was some of the reason that then we moved from South Bend, Indiana, back home to Missouri.
Okay.
Because I knew things weren't going to get any easier. I mean, as the girls get older, it's a different, the challenges become different. They get busier with activities. And, it's not like we had some live-in nanny. Like one time I proposed it. Like I said, listen, my old boss told me that you can get them like for a really good price out of Germany. And she just has to live
you're
here.
gonna
And
buy
James,
one.
James is like, I'm not having some random woman live in my house while you're gone. That is weird. And I was like, that's everyone's dream.
That's everyone's-
She would
That's
only be
everyone's dream.
random. She would only be random for a short period of time.
Exactly, and that's what I said. He shut it down immediately. Now, he is a Texan, so he is very black or white with
Oh,
things,
very-
right? So,
Yep.
anyway, but that is one of the reasons that we moved home. And I will not ever pretend like it's been easy for him because it's not.
Sure.
But now, he recently took a new job, and the conversation was, this job will require him to travel about 50% of the time. And
Oh,
so
fair enough.
it was this conversation of, your career has come first for so long. I really want to do this. And so then I had to have the conversation with my boss that, I still can travel, but we have to scale back. And so what we did were things like here at Commodity Classic, we have multiple sponsors. So I'm not doing these one-off tapings in, other states that I was traveling every week. In 2021, the fall of 2021, I was burned out. I hit a wall. Mm-hmm. And when you get to that point, you're not yourself. I wasn't myself at home. And so I realized that. And so we had a conversation. And so things have gotten better. I'm not saying I don't ever travel because I do. Obviously,
Yeah,
I still travel. But like my husband's actually here. So he flew out a day later. I'm flying home, a day earlier. And so we have someone helping. His parents actually drove up and help. But when I'm home, I am extremely, extremely present. My girls go with us everywhere. We're going to dinner, they're coming with us. And so that's just kind of the balance. But like I said, I will never pretend it is easy. I do things like set out their clothes with their matching hair bows.
Yeah.
Like it's like anything I can do to have make him have one less decision to make in the morning, but he's done really well. And the girls adore him a lot because they're super close to him because they've spent a lot of time with him. And I am excited that those roles are reversing.
That's good.
Like I said.
Well, it's bonus time. I mean, there's instances I know in the routine in our house that my daughters and I have a different bond than my wife, but it's because that's the task that I've always handled. Yeah, it's fun. But then also, jealousy's not the right word, but then you see the things that my wife and daughters have as a bond. I'm like, oh, that would have been cool if I started that or, jumped into that role. So it's neat to see the fine balance. I did get a Snapchat, Corey, this morning of my daughters shoveling the driveway.
Yeah.
Oh, how old is she?
Well, they're 6 and 8 now.
Oh, my gosh.
And they wanted it to be clean before Dad gets home. Well, they've got a couple days, but still.
Dude, that is awesome. That is some work ethic. That is.
I better text mine and tell him.
Exactly.
Send him that one. So that, hey,
I'm not bragging, but we don't have snow right now in Missouri. So I'm not bragging, but I'm just telling you, they don't have anything to shovel.
We're happy to be here right now.
We're super happy.
Very nice here.
You guys have had so much snow this year.
We haven't been terrible. I mean,
so you guys are on the cusp where you haven't had.
I feel like we get it and then it melts.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. That's been the biggest thing. We had a lot of blowing, and we created some snort. The snow.
Oh,
yep.
Yeah.
We certainly had that this year, and then it melts away and everything looks dirty and grimy, and then you get fresh snow again.
Yep.
And then, the same process over and over. But about this time every show, we like to break it up. Dave already did a good job getting to something that wasn't job-related question in there, but we're going to play a game.
Okay.
You've played Would You Rather before?
Yeah, as long as it's not trivia, because I did that yesterday. I'm not good at trivia.
Were you in the cash cab?
Yes.
Oh, man.
Yes.
Did you make any money?
Well, I can't take money because as an ag journal, there is a clear policy at Farm Journal.
We can
See, you can accept gifts. I can't do. So anyway, a farmer, a farmer from Michigan, she really, really, really wanted to meet Ben. She really wanted to go. They were almost out of time, and I'm like, get in with me. Like we can do this together. So she got $160.
Oh, nice.
She answered most of the questions, so she deserved that $160.
Oh, good.
Well, we had this really nice gift for you. You had a couple of diamonds in it.
well played.
Dang it.
I didn't realize we couldn't give it to you. So
I guess
we'll probably.
So I told my husband, I said, you know what? Maybe I'm not made to be an ag journalist because I really like free things.
How hard is that? Everything's free stuff.
Yes, I know.
Yeah.
It's hard, but yes. Anyway, go ahead. Would you rather?
Would you rather make a phone call or send a text message?
Oh, phone call.
Yeah?
Yes, my boss, well, he says that I'm like his second daughter because I call so much. He said if you would go through his call logs the past year, it would be his daughter, his son, and me. Like that is because I'm like, if I'm driving to the work or I'm driving to a shoot or whatever, my brain doesn't shut off. And I can't text. I'll probably forget about it by the time I get there because then you're hitting the ground running. So I call. I like to call. I like when people call. I'm not always able to answer as frequently as I would like when I'm out doing things. But I am definitely a person that prefers a phone call.
Okay, money is not an option. And don't worry about the cost of maintenance. Would you rather own a boat or own your own plane?
Ooh.
That's hard.
Do you get a pilot with a plane?
Yeah, you don't have to worry about the cost. Even if you don't get the pilot.
Just hire a pilot.
I flew on a private plane one time when I had to get from a speaking engagement to National Farm Machinery Show. And I get there, and the pilot's like, well, do you want your picture? And I play it off like I do this all the time. I'm like, oh, no, I'm fine. I never take selfies, but I was taking selfies in that thing. It was awesome. But still, because probably a boat. I'm a lake person. I love the lake. It's not like we have a place.
Lake of the Ozarks.
Do you have a lake?
Oh, my sister has a place at the Lake of the Ozarks, and Lake of the Ozarks is my favorite place.
I thought she was going to say, and I love my sister. That's what she said.
If she's listening, I do.
I love my boat.
Yeah, so I would say a boat. I'm a lake person.
Right now, I'm team airplane. It just.
Oh, I get it.
We don't envy how much you travel, and we're doing more traveling now for the podcast than we ever did. And an 11-hour drive to National Farm Machinery Show is okay to do once a year, but you start doing that. We're going to go to
weekly.
Decatur. We're going to come. Coming down here, we flew commercially on all different flights.
Yep.
Just having your plane would be kind of handy.
I get you.
And interviews in person are way better. So we could just fly to them
Yeah.
instead of zooming.
Or send the pilot out and fly someone to us.
See, you guys are brilliant. I wish money wasn't an option.
And then we'll fly over the football field.
Yes.
We would. We'd have Farm4Profit on the underbelly of the plane.
Yeah.
You know, that they never got back to me. I called Whiteman Air Force Base, and they never got back to me.
You kind of already touched on this one a little bit while we were talking about the difference between media and podcasting and that side of it. So now you can only say what's on your mind all the time, or you never get to speak again.
Ooh.
I mean, you know what I do for a living.
Yeah.
My husband will tell you. I say what's on my mind.
But then
all
you got to
the
say
time.
what's on your mind when you're taping.
Well, when I'm well, then it's going to have to be maybe
A new gig. She's got a
New career. We found what is next.
Well, we should.
we're going to have to turn it into a cable television show. Then, because
Ag next level.
Ag
Time
next level.
doesn't shut up.
unfiltered,
Oh, wait.
it is not going to be
Barstool.
pretty.
I don't know. If it seems like all the other media outlets get a bit biased one way or another, you know? So
And we don't. So because my husband for the longest time refused to pay for television, which is very bad job security.
Yeah.
But because he refused to pay, like when I'm on a plane, I will get on and watch all the network news, and it's amazing to me how different the storyline is. And when you think about some of these people that are so angry or they're so mad at this country.
Yeah.
I now see why. My gosh, I was angry when I got off the plane here at Commodity Classic. So, yeah, it has become some extreme.
can you sniff that out? I mean, you're a professional. You watch something, you're like, oh, this is not right. This
Yeah,
is
I mean, well, it's just so extreme. That's the thing is, just middle of the road. And we have a great managing editor that I write the rest of the show. She writes the news. And that's what I do appreciate about her is we'll have a say, and Clinton and I can go in and say, well, we're not comfortable with this. Can we add this angle in or whatever?
Yep.
But she does a great job of being middle of the road. And so, then I'm not uncomfortable talking about a story. But yeah, there's a lot of times that I'm like, that's BS. Like, what are they saying?
I listen to so many history podcasts. That's just kind of that's how I try to check out every
Yeah.
once in a while. And one of the episodes was talking about the history of journalism and how newspapers, obviously evolved. But they originally started off being politically one-sided. Like you went and you bought, for example, the Republican newspaper.
Really?
And you bought the Democrats newspaper, whichever it was. Like they were completely biased in the beginning, selling two completely different newspapers. And then that's where I think it was New York. It was a publication in New York, probably the Times, came about and tried to create one that was down the middle. So that was the evolution of originally you just walked by, and if you wanted your news, you got at the time the political parties were called different than Republican and Democrat.
But that makes sense when you see a local newspaper that's called the Democrat. You know what I mean? That makes sense now.
Yep.
Never knew.
Yeah, so I thought that was interesting.
That's super interesting.
And it was almost like it's come full circle because now you can get completely polarizing media outlets, and that's just what you're going to get.
Exactly.
What we should have done instead of this game is get some hot button topics in ag and ask her and make her sweat.
There you go.
Oh,
She
God.
wouldn't be able to answer, but
She said there, she'd
watch
be
her
like-
reaction.
She'd be like, next.
Would you?
Yes.
Would you
Yes.
rather? Yeah.
So say you're not traveling, you're back in Missouri, what's a day in the life look like for you?
One time when we were home during the pandemic, and the short stint that we were home, and we lived in the river bottoms, and I'm on a phone call, and my youngest yells out, "Mom, can you come wipe my butt?" And I'm on with coworkers, and they're like, "Oh, this is the Real Housewives of the Missouri River Bottoms."
This is the Real
right?
Housewives
And so then they joke, and I'm like, "Listen, you do not want to know really what our house is like because." It is, sometimes James will be like, what if your viewers really knew what went on at the house? Like he's roping a possum that's playing dead in the backyard to go take it out that's getting the cat. But, it is a crap show, which I call it something else, every day. But we live on about 10 acres, so you never know. You never know it. But I am glad that people do not see a day in the life because it's not glamorous. I think you get caught up in this. You see someone on your TV and you're like, oh, they live such this glamorous lifestyle. No, In the summer, if it's on the weekend, you'll see me mowing the yard. You'll see my husband telling me, well, those lines aren't straight. You're not mowing anymore. But it's my escape, Yeah, I cannot mow straight lines with a zero turn. I will tell you that right now.
Hard.
Yeah, it's very hard.
We need a new GPS receiver.
Yeah.
Oh, that would be awesome.
Set, go.
Would be awesome.
Sit back.
You will also,
You could
learned,
really check out then.
Yeah,
No,
because
man.
you cannot right now drink a beer with zero turn.
No.
I got pretty good at it.
You did?
Ran a mowing business for about 12, 15 years. And there's a lot of hours on a lawnmower. If you get the right zero turn and the handlebars are close enough together, you can run one with
Some
your
of them
thumb.
have ice.
You got to have long runs.
Stop
for that,
it.
Though. You're not.
Yeah,
doing
you got to go
precision.
straight for a while. You
Yeah.
can't. Yeah, you're not messing around.
My husband is that good at it. I'm not. So by the time I get done, I'm like, I haven't even drank this thing. There's half left, and now it's hot.
Grass is
Like
in it.
grass is all in it. Like anyway, so I love
That's
to
the
be
part.
outside.
That's the part I never figured out is why the cup holder's on the same side as the chute.
Oh, that you know what?
Yeah.
That is a good question.
I go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You need to wear like a helmet, one of those
You know,
helmets.
you
with the
guys
straw.
are at John Deere. Maybe you should bring that up with the folks at John Deere.
I've got someone that's tell you.
But we love to be outside. The girls, at the house, we love to be in the yard. We love to be outside. Like I said, we're on about 10 acres.
Do you have
So
a studio at your home? Like, do you tape from home?
I do, but I don't even have an office. So my husband has the office because he works from home. So when I'm home, I'm at the dining room. So sometimes the girls will be like, Mom, can we eat in your office tonight? I'm like, this is not my office. This is the dining room. Your dad has not built me an office yet. So no, I still go to the studio.
And how far away is that?
An hour.
Okay.
It is an hour. But where we live, it's a great place, so it's worth it. It's not like I go into the studio every single day, but I do. If I do Zoom interviews and things, it'll be from home if I'm home.
Sure.
But in the studio, it's about an hour from the office.
Yeah, my wife works from home as well, which is convenient to have somebody there, like a snow day, school gets out.
Absolutely.
But it's also taxing to that parent because they're always there when snow day and school gets out. But she was having us stage her office to fit the Zoom window of the camera for all of her meetings because everything's done over that. And how much more comfortable people are because she tells me stories all the time. Kids just come walking into a meeting and dogs come in.
Dogs
and
barking.
Cat pukes on the keyboard. I mean, just the stuff that they see and is now become socially acceptable. I mean, I wouldn't be caught dead. If my kids talk while I'm on the phone with a customer, I used to just get, be quiet.
If you're ever on a Zoom with me and you see me go, that's because the girls know. Like if I'm on, do not. But they come up, Mom, especially if they're getting home right after school, and they're coming in, Mom. I'm like, just that.
Need the on
Give
air.
them just
You need the on air
look.
sign.
Mhm. Yeah, I don't have the on air sign at home.
The on-air sign.
Yeah, in my dining room, I do not have an on-air sign.
You should get one. That'd be kind
Just
of
turn
fun.
the oven. Just turn the oven on. If the oven's on, it means on air.
I do need to come up with a code. That's brilliant.
There you go. So we've got to interview some social influencers, and when we did, some of them have actually backed off. They took a break because it's so much just always on. You're always on. You're always trying to make some content. You're always thinking. You have an impressive career, a long time, always agriculture, always on the point, always, something farm. Is there ever a time you're just like, man, I just want to do, like, I started TikTok half because I wanted something like, I don't even have to think about this. I want a mindless something that I can just scroll through. Nobody's worried about it. It's not an email. It's not a something on my phone. Do you have that? Like, have you had fatigue from being in agriculture? You talked about it in 2021. So
yeah, you've probably seen on Twitter, I'm not as active as I once was. And it's, not only is it my personal Twitter and Facebook, which is it. So my name on air is Tyne Morgan, but that is my maiden name. But on my driver's license, it's Tyne Holsey. And so
I don't know if I knew that. I don't.
So that's and in the beginning we did it as kind of, well, it was already Morgan. It's not like I had this long career in television, but it was just for security purposes. It was easier. And then the internet comes and you Google, Tyne Morgan, and the first thing pops up is my, engagement announcement. So it's not like it's hard to find.
Okay.
So anyway, there's that side of it. But the lady at the local restaurant actually calls my husband
Mr. Morgan?
Tyne. Yeah, like just to bug him about it, you know. But I'm any other time, if I'm not on TV, I'm Tyne Holsey. That's my that's my name. That's my married name. Anyway, so I did get, you know, there's so much. And for a while there on Twitter, it was just so negative. And no matter how hard you try, you know, I try to have thick skin. But at the end of the day, I'm a person. And so we also, you know, I'm help run our U.S. Farm Report accounts, plus your personal accounts, plus everything else. And then it's TikTok. And I know that not everyone is tuning in to their local television station or RFD to watch the show. And so you want to provide content to people everywhere, but it is a lot. And to write the show and, you know, interview everyone and write these packages and then put that content online, that's my priority. So then social media is that's the last thing on the list for the day. And I don't focus on it like I should, and I wish I had someone that could help at least with the show side of it more, you know, strategize and all of that. But yeah, I've had to pull back a little bit because it's a lot. And like I said, when I'm home, I really want to be present.
Yep, it is. It's a lot to manage, and I jotted down a couple of things as you talked about how much writing you do. You know, I co-host Ag News Daily, basically media regurgitation podcast. We don't create any of the stories ourselves. We take stories that you write and others write and share those in podcast format. That just has opened my eyes as to how much you do in print when you're doing a TV show. Like, there's that much with podcasts. We never thought we'd write as much as we did for something where we sit here and talk on microphones.
Well, I told you, I didn't go the print route in college because I didn't want to write for the newspaper. But I know that, you know, not everyone is watching the show on television. And if I'm just doing content in video form and I'm expecting, they're just going to have to tune in to get that content, then I'm not really providing a service to our viewers, our readers. You know, I want to serve it up in every way possible. So that is also, I mean, it is a lot of work then taking that, because my scripts for television are nothing like you see online, because it's, you know, it's in soundbite format and all of that. So it takes a lot of time to put that online. And, you know, I wish I could do even more content, but it is a full-time job taking those stories and putting it online. But at the end of the day, I know that a lot of, you know, there's different people that come to AgWeb then watch our show. And so I just want to get the content out there in any way possible.
So then the other piece that I pulled out of this is we're just a couple days after National Women's Day. Deere's putting a really big focus this year on strong women in agriculture.
International Women's Day.
International Women's Day. So I mean, just the fact that you are a female broadcaster in the ag world, and when you talk about no matter how thick your skin is, male or female, has that been challenging? Do you feel like there's more negative feedback because you're a female?
I'm still surprised how many people today, and I'm not painting it, I don't want to paint a broad brush here, but, you know, if I go to some events, that, you know, there's some people that still think that what does she know about ag? You know, and why, you know, what are you basing that on? But honestly, this week, this is bad to admit, but I didn't even know it was International Women's Day, because I don't want to be known. I am the first female host of U.S. Farm Report, and I do not take that lightly. But I don't want to be known as the first female host of U.S. Farm Report. I just want to be known as the host of U.S. Farm Report, you know? And really, when you think about when I took over in 2014, it was a big decision to look before me. The hosts of U.S. Farm Report were Orion Samuelson, Max Armstrong, and John Phipps. I do not fit that mold. And so, you know, it's a big change for viewers. And our viewers really do not love change. And so for a year, I actually started hosting the show once a month to actually transition and give our viewers. Yeah. And then I ended up getting pregnant. And so that actually pushed it back a little bit, because when I was supposed to take over, I was in the middle of maternity leave. So for our viewers, it looked like the week after I got back from maternity leave, I took over the show, when in reality, it was a year in the transition. And you know who was the biggest voice and the one that pushed for me to take over? John Phipps. And I don't know if it wouldn't have been for John to say, you know, I'm ready to semi-retire. I still want to do this, but I don't want to drive 3.5 hours one way every week.
Yep.
But I want Tyne to take it over. I don't know if it would have happened, because we've come a long way in a decade. But at the end of the day, I want you to tune in and think, golly, that was just great content. That was great content for a female host. You know what I mean? And and I don't think about it. Now, sometimes, like I said, people may question my knowledge and say, well, really, what do you know about ag? But as I said in the beginning, I tell people, what do I do for a living? I'm in agriculture. I'm not a television host. I'm in agriculture.
I think that'll change with the demographic, though. You even look at football and announcers, and they were all predominantly male, and that has changed 110%. And I think it's just exposure. And I think the more we get exposed to it, the more we're sitting right here with a social influencer egg with Emma as well. And, as people see that more, you're going to just frequency.
And it's so hard. And this will be me probably going to get flack for what I'm going to say next. But we've had a lot of conversations down here, a lot of strong women. And then a lot of the strong women understand that there's other women watching you. And there's part of, I got to live up to an expectation or not. You try not to let it affect you. But even as I'm watching sports, like you just talked about, and if there's a female referee for football or basketball and they make a bad call, I'm guilty in my head sometimes going, oh, she just doesn't know.
We're all guilty.
But then you turn right around and I'm still yelling at the male ref.
Yeah.
I'm still, So it's going to take a lot for that to not be a thing. And unfortunately it is.
Yeah, I mean, you look at this morning. It was 3 males on our panel, and it's not that I didn't want a female. I'm just looking. Okay, here at Commodity Classic, who are some of the 3 that are going to be here that are going to be great on stage? And so, as we know, farming is still a male dominated industry. But yes, things have changed. But I just want to be known as a ag journalist, host of a television show, not a female host of a television show.
So we know that this is going to be one of our most memorable interviews. It's one we've been looking forward to.
Oh, well, thank you.
That we've had kind of marked on our calendar for an opportunity, hopefully, to cross paths. We didn't want to do it over Zoom. Like I said, they're way better to do
They
in
are
person.
way better in person.
Oh,
yeah.
Way better.
But you and your broadcasting, do you have any interviews that have stuck out or broadcast or reports that you've done that just, boom, I'll never forget it?
Well, there are a couple. One, I got invited to the White House to interview a lot of the cabinet secretaries. And this was under the Trump administration. And at the time there was, I had went to interview, there was someone in the White House that focused just on agriculture. And I got to meet him. I went and interviewed him. And then I'm walking down the hall and we meet somebody that's in charge of developing some of these relationships with media. And so she found out that we actually broadcast the show that airs and caters to farmers, and she didn't even know that was a thing. And so then she got my contact information, so I went, and that was super, super cool. And I'm not saying one administration over the other, but when you go in and you're with some of these big names in television and in broadcasting, and you're in there and you're able then to talk about the ag side of things with some of these cabinet secretaries, it was cool. I will never forget it. It was an amazing experience. I'm glad I don't live in Washington, D.C. and do this every day, because the amount of, it's unbelievable, but that was memorable. The other one is we did a series called Grit with Grace, and it was us to find stories, good that just showcased the best, that grit and that grace within rural America. And I did one on a boy that had fallen in a well, and his dad jumped in to save him. And at the time he just heard his son drowning. He didn't know that his son was 70 feet down in the well. And he got down there, and the 3-year-old brother had to run to the road to flag down help. The 3-year-old brother that at the time couldn't really speak that well, but had to flag down help. And so we went and I found out about this from being in Missouri. We went and captured that story, and we got the 911 call, and we put it together. And it's one that still today I cannot watch without crying. It'll tug at your heartstrings. But at the same time, it also that was the first time that he had heard what actually happened outside the well. And so when he was down there, he didn't know everything that was happening and everything that did go right. And so, there's two sides to it, because that also sparked some emotions,
right.
and told him some sides that he didn't know. And I, kind of uncovered this pain and this, just so scared. What would you do if your son was down in a well? You heard the splash, you hear him gasping for air. You can't think twice, like, how am I going to get down there? He jumped.
Yep.
The fact he didn't land on him, the fact that they were able to get him up, it was 5 farmers that saved him. Like, it was this amazing story. And so there's some of those that I will never forget, because, you don't always run across stories like that. But to be able to actually share that story, and the only reason he shared it was that he wanted to make other people well aware, meaning that, that well had been there forever. there was a board covering it. They didn't know that board was rotted out in the middle. I mean, they'd been meaning to cap that well for years, but they just hadn't got around to it. And so if he could make others well aware, then he was willing to share his story. And so it's one of those that, I get done with interviews like that, and I don't take it lightly because I know, you really want to do this story justice. And so that was one of them that will stick out.
Wow.
Did you ever get to interview Paul Harvey?
No.
I think that would be cool.
And the radio station that I was on, Paul Harvey came over the radio every day at noon. But that would have been awesome.
Yep. How do you guys make the news and find the stories? How do you go about finding it?
Well, as much as sometimes I get burnt out by social media and Twitter, I mean, that's made the job
easier.
I mean, just to see some of these stories. Now you have to ground truth and you have to call but just to get the lead on some of these stories and see what's going on. So that has really
it's made
helped
podcasting
tremendously.
Easier.
Oh yeah. I mean, just to reach out to somebody to say, a week ago, well, now almost 2 weeks ago, when that dust storm blew through Texas, and these farmers were looking at over 100-mile-per-hour winds, and it killed off their wheat. And so, immediately, one of the guys I sent a note to on Twitter, and I said, hey, do you have time for a quick interview? Can we talk about the damage? Can I use some of your photos? I needed some more video, so I reached out to another guy. I said, are you okay with me using this video?
Right.
It makes it so much, just easier now to reach out, and you are able to see some of these stories that isn't necessarily happening in your backyard. And so that's the biggest thing. But if anyone has a story idea, believe me, I'm always game for story ideas.
Oh, I love this. So also, you like I said, we're not going to ask you what's next because we know you don't know.
You already
I
said
don't
that.
know.
Podcast host on Farm for Profit.
Yeah. You guys got it.
That's what I heard. I mean, I don't know what you guys.
I don't have a female.
I don't know what you
voice,
guys heard, but that's what I heard.
She'd be again sitting with 3 men and up on the same panel. As you look around your industry, who inspires you? What's somebody that you look up to?
I mean, there's so many that inspire me, but because I know them personally, because we work together and you see who they are both on and off camera. I adore Clinton Griffiths. I adore Chip Flory. There's so many. John Phipps. I mean, he's, like I said, he's the reason that I took over the show. And then one that I will always just rave about. He will get my rave reviews is Machinery Pete. And I don't know if you've had him on, but
we have.
He is as genuine on camera and on air and in person, as he is when the cameras aren't on. And it's actually a fault because when we go to things like National Farm Machinery Show and things are scheduled, I'm like, Greg, we have got to go to this taping. In fact, like 5 years ago, I was taking Greg to another spot, and this guy comes up and he goes, hey, are you Greg's secretary? No, not even Greg. Are you Machinery Pete's secretary? And I just looked at him. I said, yes, I am. What do you need? He goes, I'd love a photo. And I'm like, okay, no problem. Hey, Greg, when you get done, he's asked your secretary to take a photo if you have time. And Greg's like, what? I said, I'll tell you later. But it's so funny. But Greg is the best guy. And, even when we'll have some heart-to-heart conversations and, he's given me some great career advice that I will always appreciate it. But after every conversation, he truly does care about me as a person. And so Machinery Pete, Greg Peterson, is just salt of the earth, one of the best people. So there's so many that I respect, but I know these people, so well personally that I can say that they their ethics both in their career and in their personal life are just, really, really high.
That's great. What about Dave, going back to Dave's question of being able to disconnect? Mm-hmm. TV doesn't stop, right? You gotta be there.
Oh no, I'm getting texts right now about the show that I'm going to have to answer to get the show out the door for this weekend.
And obviously, you're human, right? You don't have a good day every day.
No.
So how do you put on the chipper face and go be Tyne?
Well, Corey, makeup can do a lot.
Corey,
we can't make you smile.
Like this morning when I have our live taping and it's always a large crowd here and we have sponsors and so I woke up in the middle of the night and I couldn't go back to sleep for like 3 or 4 hours because I'm thinking through my head like everything I need to make sure is in place. Absolutely. Yeah. And this morning I think of like, oh my gosh, the one benefit of being a female is I can cover up these bags with some makeup. But I'm a pretty positive person, so it's so much easier to have a positive outlook and be happy than it is to be negative. And so one time my husband had to remind me. He said, Tyne, you have to remember that darkness doesn't like light. And I'm like, what do you mean by that? And he goes, you're this positive person. So someone that is negative, they don't like that because darkness doesn't like light. And so it's some of that no matter what, I'm not always having the best day. I get in a crummy mood from time to time. I'm tired. I need more coffee. The girls have this going on. I need to get back for. But at the end of the day, I just really want to be a positive person. But I want people to tune into the show, and even if they aren't from agriculture, I want them to walk away because we are on we have about 175 local affiliates. That some of these people aren't necessarily directly tied to ag,
right?
But they're in a rural area, and so at the end of the day, who wants to tune into a show where it's like, golly, this is boring. Like this person won't even smile. It's just all monotone. Yeah. Exactly. But I do want people to have a positive, a view of agriculture. And so whether you know my background or not, when you watch U.S. Farm Report, I hope it is a pleasant experience.
Yeah, I wrote down that when you were in D.C., the fact that one of the secretaries or whichever it was didn't know there was a show for ag. You just, you guys have TV?
Yeah.
You make TV? Yeah.
Well, even at CES this year, I was interviewing some folks with John Deere, and people would come in, and the fact that they were real farmers, like they were amazed. And my takeaway was, farmers aren't viewed as this villain as what we thought. I mean, they're actually like people are dying to meet farmers. And in the tech space, the fact that you could get on that level and talk about some of the artificial intelligence and things, there's a lot more of that connection than we think. And you can paint it with this broad brush and say, yeah, farmers are villainized. But when I left Las Vegas, I had the opposite impression. Farmers were famous to a lot of these people.
Romanticized. Almost.
Absolutely.
You look at the success of the YouTube videos of tractors and stuff going through the field, and the influencers now that have become this, their audience isn't all just farm kids.
Right.
Yeah. Everybody wants to see that. Well, guys, we should probably be respectful of her time. Mm-hmm. But Corey, we always ask the guests the same question.
Yeah. What does success look like to Tyne? Doesn't have to be about your career. It could be personal.
Kids, think deep.
Yeah. No. And I know this is defined in different ways, but success is being a good mom that's present, giving back to my community. Really, I want to leave not necessarily a legacy, but I just if I'm leaving a positive impression in someone about agriculture, or my girls are they're raised with strong ethics, strong work ethic, and all of that. That is success. So it's not necessarily what I'm doing. It's that next generation and the girls seeing that whatever you put your mind to, you will be successful, and you can move mountains in this world. Oh, yeah. Nothing with enough hard work, anything can be accomplished, and that's and so I hope that's kind of the I hope that I have been able to share agriculture story and all of that in what I do. But at the end of the day, it's all about being a mom, being a good mom. That's success in my book.
That is so cool. And if we do have a listener, the rare one, that doesn't know who you are, doesn't know where to watch your stuff, read what you're doing, how do they follow you?
Well, like I said, we're on local stations, but sometimes it's on at like 5:30 in the morning, and if you don't get up for that, I don't blame you because I don't either. So, but we put our episodes on Farm Journal's YouTube page, and so we actually divided out where if you want to watch the whole show, you can. If you just want to watch the roundtables, you can. If you just want to watch John Phipps, you can. And then we posted on the content on agweb.com as well. So those are some easy ways to find us.
And then on Twitter.
Yep, Twitter, Tyne_ag. I do have a TikTok, but I'm not very good at keeping that up. I do have an Instagram. I have personal and the U.S. Farm Report professional. Again, I'm not very good at the U.S. Farm Report one either. So sometimes, you look at success and you just think of, I could do this better. And you do end up saying, golly, I'm kind of failing at this piece of it. Yeah. But just to keep my head above water, that is success in my book right now.
I love it. Thank you so much.
Thank you guys.
This has been fun. It actually cheered me up quite a bit. I was
nice.
feeling a little crummy when we started this.
Tanner got some makeup. Look at that.
No, this has been a lot of fun. Listeners, we hope you had a lot of fun with us too. Corey, what do you say?
Say crack a bush light. You deserve it.